Hey everyone, welcome to another Unscripted and Unchained RPG review and OSR tabletop with myself, DM Bloodworth, Richard. For those of you that know me by that name as well, welcome. Hey Peter, how's it going? Good to see you. So this is kind of an impromptu, live stream. Wasn't really planning on doing it, but I've been watching these little snippets of a stream from Eric Tenkar from Tenkar's Tavern, and he's been chunking this idea down as far as like expectations for conventions, and I'm really anticipating and looking forward to Peter's commentary on this too, because he, like myself, is is a pretty prolific game master at conventions. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from him as well. And I will be putting the link in for anyone who does wish to join in and, comment on this topic as well. So, so expectations, and I'm going to frame this from the perspective of, both an attendee and on several occasions now as a special guest to conventions, and take it from that perspective. Now, I obviously cannot speak as an organizer of a convention. I haven't done that, and to be honest with you, I'm not sure I am actually the most focused, let's say, individual to put something like that together. I would certainly volunteer to assist and to do those kinds of things, but to actually launch a convention, it's a lot of work. I give anyone that dives into it for the first time, like Roger from Central New York RPG Con, going into it for the first time must be, a level of nerve-wracking that, I'm not sure I could do. I also have, Fred from AutoCon, who, Fred and Mary, who have been running AutoCon now, but very small convention, but very local here. There's Tom Wilson from ShireCon, who also has launched a convention series, and he's into his 6th or possibly even 7th year coming up, this September. And then there is Scott Legault, who runs Rising Phoenix. So these are all, and then there's Rob that runs Philadelphia Area Game Expo as well. So these are all people, Ron. These are all people that are, went out there, they stuck their necks out, and they're running these conventions, oftentimes in just their first year or second or fifth or 6th year. And these are really something that is, pretty amazing, in my opinion. But we're going to be talking today again about expectations. And if you are if you go to tabletop role-playing game conventions, or you've been invited as a special guest, or you run a convention, I would love for you to, feel free to jump on in, hit that link above, and we can have a nice discussion about it. So, hey, Roger, how's it going? So all of that and then some. Yes, it's, and there's a lot to it. User 333, hey, how's it going? I recognize your avatar, not your name, but welcome. Yeah, YouTube is a little bit wonky with these things. I am going to actually shift views here so that I can see what's going on the YouTube side. So just bear with me one more second and I can go in here. Let's make sure. Hello. It's not letting me do it. Let's try that again. No. Let me just try it from, that's so bizarre. Couldn't do it from the live streams, but I could do it from here. So anyway, I'll be monitoring it from both directions. So anyway, sorry about that. So expectations, and so let me take it from an attendees. My expectations as an attendee, and I'm going to go back to some of my earliest conventions that I attended for the first time. ShireCon being the first one that I attended in person, and I believe that was like 2020. So it was just before, the big, or maybe it was 2019, just before the shutdown and everything. Might have been 2019 was my first convention. Now I did a couple virtual cons as well. That were, totally different experience. And with a virtual con, you are going to have a completely different experience. And maybe ShireCon was 2021. So just after everything kind of broke. But anyway, when I go to a convention, if it is in a hotel, that is my preference. Now, two of the conventions I already mentioned, AutoCon is literally 7 minutes away from my home, and ShireCon is 55 minutes away from my home. So I don't require a hotel for those two conventions. But Rogers, Central New York was 2 hours and 45 minutes away, and so I certainly got a room. That way I could get the most out of both days that I'm going. I don't want to drive, nearly 3 hours there, play for, 6 to 9 hours, and then drive 3 hours back just to go back the next day for thread. That's crazy. So I will always tie that into to at least a one night stay. Now, other conventions where I go away for a much longer time, so like a 2.5 or 3 day long convention, and if the drive is 4 to 5 hours or so, then again a hotel is really necessary for that kind of a thing. So my expectations is that if you are running a fairly large convention, then a convention being held in a hotel is much more preferred than one without those kinds of supports. Again, those that I do attend that don't have that, they're very local for me, but that's going to be different for everyone else. Let's see. Let's get to my expectations early on attending conventions were to see how others did it better in all the aspects of gaming. I wanted to look beyond my FLGS and see more of what's out there. Yes, and that's another thing. So as an attendee, and I absolutely agree with Peter there, as an attendee, I'm going to a convention and I'm looking to see a large variety of games being run. So that's another thing that I want to see. I want to see a lot of different people running different game systems. I want to experience those game systems and by someone who is running them other than myself. And so that's something else that I look for when I go to a convention as an attendee. So I'm looking to play in at least 2 game sessions a day, and then possibly run one that same day as well. So a total of 9 hours worth of gameplay, and hopefully separated by about an hour in between, or half an hour in between each of those time frames. So that's another thing. As a as a frequent now convention goer, it's really nice to have somewhat of a cushion in between the gaming sessions. And this is something that I've had like a conversation with Roger as well. Um, that means starting a game session. If you start a game session at like 8 o'clock in the morning, that's typically not going to be the first session of the first day. They tend not to start until about mid-afternoon or later. I mean, this is not uniform across the board, but it's been a few that I've attended to. They'll usually have like a Thursday night session, and you go that night before, and then a full day Friday, full day Saturday, and many people do not stay through the full day on Sunday. They start clearing out in the morning. Myself, especially if it is during a time of the year that I'm working on Mondays. So I like to get out of there, by Sunday morning. And so that's the thing. The time in between sessions is great, but it's not the norm. Yes, I get that it's not the norm, but and most people, most games sessions are set for a 4 hour block, and very few game sessions actually last that full 4 hours. So there is some flexibility there. And as someone who does quite a bit of game mastery at conventions, especially when I'm writing my own adventures, I try to write those adventures to be somewhere between 3 and 4 hours long, with enough flexibility built in where I can adjust what is taking place in order for it to certainly go beyond the 3 hours, but not push way close to that 4 hour, and certainly never go over that 4 hour slot. So that's another thing that you have to bear in mind if you're an attendee and you're a game master, is you need to be mindful that sometimes people will have their schedules pretty darn tight, and if you can wrap up your game session in 3.5 hours or 3 hours and 45 minutes, that's I would say ideal. And if it is going to fall much shorter than 3 hours, I would be looking for ways to expand what's going on in there, because you want them to get the full usage of that time slot, and keep them engaged for, like I said, at least 3 to 3.5 hours is like a bare minimum for a 4 hour slot. So anyway, let's move on. I always leave Sunday morning. Yeah. Typically totally exhausted by that point. And I absolutely agree that it's long. I mean, when you go to a convention, and I'm sure a lot of people here are either convention goers or convention runners, it's a long day, especially if you consider you're commuting in, and then you might be running a game session, or you're playing in a couple of game sessions. You need to, at some point, check into the hotel if it is at a hotel. You need to squeeze in at least 2 meals throughout the day into that as well. And, it ends up being a really long day. And then, I've never fallen asleep, prior to like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'm an early riser. I'm up at 6:30, taking a shower, then going to a breakfast, and then finally get to the first game, which is usually 8 o'clock in the morning. So, and then that's a full day, at least a 12-hour day, running up and until then, possibly even longer. So when that Sunday morning rolls around, you have to check out of your room by 10 o'clock in most cases. And it's, that's another thing that you're kind of expecting on your own to do, is to get out there, and to get home, fairly early on. I also have a family who wants me home Sunday afternoon, to go take care of the garbage and whatnot, and to spend a little bit of family time during the weekend as well, even if I am away for a convention. I also bring a lot of food with me. I learned that a few years ago with eating expensive, disappointing food. Yeah, I have not had that experience, to be honest with you. The two conventions that I most notably eat at has been Rising Phoenix, which you and I met for the first time at Rising Phoenix, and the food there was actually not expensive and pretty darn good. Then there's the food was very good at Central New York Con as well. And Peter, you should definitely try to get out there if you can. It's in Utica, New York, so it's just outside of Utica, New York, and it shouldn't be that far of a trip for you. Maybe 3.5 hours, but very, very good experience. You would enjoy it, I know. It's very similar to the experience that we had at Rising Phoenix as well. So I definitely recommend that. So let's see, what else do we have here? Yes, Rising Phoenix does have good food, and so does ShireCon as well. ShireCon has great food. Just no hotel there. There's an Airbnb locally. Yeah, you would. I think you would really enjoy that one, for sure. And if you're running one of your games, and you're running Savage Worlds. Savage Worlds would fit in very well there as well. So anyway, so other expectations. So one of the other things that Eric Tenkar was talking about was the expectations for a special guest. Now, I've had the pleasure of being invited as a special guest to several conventions now. Usually based on the fact that I run a YouTube channel, not that I've published anything of any real significance, but the YouTube channel is really my forward-facing self within the hobby, the tabletop role-playing hobby, and within the YouTube tabletop hobby as well. And yes, this I do consider to be a hobby. And being invited as a guest solely based on the fact, or almost solely based on the fact, that I run this channel, I have this channel here. The expectations, I think, or even the obligations that I feel that I have towards the runner of a convention, is that I'm certainly going to bring them on to the channel to pitch their convention, and I let them come on, numerous times, and I talk about the conventions numerous times. As once again, I'm doing it here, as well, and I'm still putting out there, the conventions that I certainly intend to go to, whether it be 6 months down the road, or even 12 months down the road. And so that's one of the things that I think is an obligation and an expectation for a special guest. A special guest should be an ambassador for the convention, and really putting it out there and whatnot. Now, some things that make that really helpful, or make it really helpful for us to do that, is to have flyers. And Roger sent me a flyer. I mean, I have some of the flyers. I don't have them all here, but AutoCon came out with a flyer this year. Central New York had a flyer. that received great praise, by the way, Roger, and then ShireCon as well, and some of the other ones. Although um, I did not get flyers for every one that I've been to. Rising Phoenix does not have a flyer, but I cut and paste and do things on the channel to show that off. But that's something that I think would be really important for conventions moving forward to do if they haven't done so already, and that is to make these flyers, and those index card size flyers are phenomenal, because then when I'm going to one convention and another one is coming up, all right. Especially if I'm a special guest for that other one, I feel the obligation to hand these out at the table as well. And I had been doing that with these conventions at every convention I went to this year. So with the exception of Philadelphia Area Game Expo, when I went to AutoCon, I had the Central New York flyers and the ShireCon flyers with me already. All right. And so I was able to share those out there. Now, before AutoCon, I had his flyer, which I spread around to my local gaming shops, in the general area. And so they got some boost there as well. So that's one of the expectations that I would have as a special guest of the of a showrunner, basically a convention runner, is give me the tools to help boost what you're doing beyond just coming on the channel and talking about your convention, but hand out those flyers, or send me or anybody that's a special guest at your thing, flyers, so that we can share those out there. Because a lot of times putting something that is in the hand is better than how do they say, a bird in hand is better than two in the bush, right? And flyers really do take care of that as well. Let me see what else we have here. I can't imagine being asked to be a special guest. You should. I mean, your expertise as a game master, and Rising Phoenix does something very similar to that, where if you're running a certain number of of games at Rising Phoenix, your badge is going to be comped, and you're going to get a special you'll get a special pin that marks the number of years that you've been a game master at Rising Phoenix. So there is ways that you are quote unquote a special guest, as far as if you're running enough games and you are a game master, then you're going to get some perks, at least as a game master. That's not quite labeling as a special guest, but that's something that I think is important for important for these convention organizers to do as well, is can give out the label of special guest to those that are going to promote the convention, as well as really participate in the convention by running games and such. And if they can afford to do so, comping for the badges, again, for volunteering or for running games, is something that's fairly normal. And so I wouldn't quite put that as that's my an absolute like expectation for it, but it would certainly be something that's a nice thing to have. All right. It's a nice gesture to give to those that are promoting your convention and running a lot of games at your convention as well. So, well, again, I mean, no one has ever come to me and said, "Hey, I'd like for you to be a special guest, and this is what I need from you." And I would certainly welcome them to say something along those lines. So I'm basically just putting it out there that this is what you could expect from me being invited to your convention as a special guest. I'm willing to, again, bring you on the channel several times to really promote your convention. I would be willing to hand out flyers at other conventions that are leading up to your convention. I would be willing to, once I get there, I'm going to be running games. That's for certain. Not quite sure how many games anymore. I used to run like 5 at Rising Phoenix, and I'll never make that mistake again. But I would certainly be willing to sit on a panel if people wanted to talk about, well, what is your take on the hobby in general, or what is it like being a small time YouTuber and trying to break into the higher numbers, or just get the word out for certain games that are oftentimes not really boosted or spoken about very often. How do we keep the OSR alive, um, thing? How do we entice new players to come to old games and really get them engaged with the older game systems and realize that older game systems have a lot to offer for a modern audience. And so those kinds of things I would be certainly very willing and thankful for having the opportunity to do that. So conventions having panels or doing special sessions or whatnot. I'm going to click on Roger's thing here because I believe he is doing it. I have my special guests run at least 2 games, do a Q&A, and generally be available for public interaction. So he's basically saying the same thing that I have. Oh, and they have to suffer through one of my horrible speeches. That was not a bad speech. All right, that was certainly not a bad speech. Yeah, I mean, those kinds of things I would like to, see more of, and again, to be asked those, that being asked of me, if I'm a special guest, I don't have a problem with. All right, I'd actually enjoy doing so. Sounds like torture. Just joking. Yeah. Um, it was not that bad. All right. So, but anyway, um, so that's another expectation. I know, Eric was really talking about, when you're asked to go to a convention that involves a flight, and I think that was primarily what he was speaking to, and I have been invited to and offered, like, we'll comp your room for at least 2 conventions, and I'm not going to mention them by name, but those individuals know who you are, and looking at it, I'm super appreciative of that, and it's something that I would love to do, but the travel time to both of these 2 places, was in Michigan and the other one is in Wisconsin. That involves either a you know $800 flight round trip, plus all of the hours it takes pre and post, going to the New York airport, which is no freaking easy task, or driving 15 hours, which will include a hotel on the way, then another full day of driving, the next day, and then getting to the convention, spending the time at the convention, and then a an extra day to come home. That's normally not a thing either, and so it becomes a much more complicated thing. No matter how much I want to get out to those conventions, I would certainly have to curtail how many conventions throughout the year that I'm actually going to do, because that becomes a 5-day long convention. All right. and that becomes something that is, unless of course I fly. So um, I'm looking to do at least one of those two in the next couple of, not next year, but possibly the following year. I'm certainly looking at that possibility of going to one of those two far-flung ones. And things like Gary Con or those are really off the table. Too expensive to go there just in general. And then the fact that you have to fly in and you have to do, at least I do, that's kind of off the table. And those kind of conventions, those really big conventions, are not going to comp rooms unless you're a true, superstar kind of person in the hobby. And so I wouldn't expect to get something like that, unless this channel really does explode at some point. And I don't foresee that ever really happening either. I think it'll slowly grow over the years, but it'll never get to that level. So let's see. Flying is usually a deal breaker. I'm starting to feel the siren call of North Texas, though, so I might have to make an exception. Yeah. And, again, that's another one I'd have to fly as well. But I'm pretty content with the 4 or 5 conventions that I think are within travel distance for me. And those are ones that, at least 4 of those, I would go to every single year, and then it's alternating with that 5th one with one of the 4 as well. But yeah, I would love to get out there, but I don't see that as really in the cards. Flying is a deal breaker for me. I'll do one long distance convention per year due to those reasons. Yeah, it adds up quick and it's a lot of time in transit. That being said, they're great experiences, absolutely phenomenal experiences. And whether they're big conventions or small, you're going to have a different experience in big and small conventions, obviously. And I'm going to say that they're an equal experience, equal quality of experience with those as well. Yeah, you want to get to North Texas too. Gary Con was nuts, but it was also a cool experience running games there. Yeah, I would love to do it, but again, it's just too far for me. A little too bloated lately, yeah. And that's the other thing that I kind of bring into one of the things that I have an expectation that a convention is going to be fairly well organized. And so far that has been my across the board experience. Every convention that I've gone to, whether it's Philadelphia Game Expo, Rising Phoenix, Central New York, AutoCon, ShireCon, every one of those conventions has been extremely well organized, even in their inception years or younger number of years that they've been running those conventions. And they ranged in size from as small as 50 to as high as 1,800, visitors, at those conventions. So I would say that runs the full small, tiny, very cozy to a high mid-sized or even possibly even a large convention. I don't know exactly where most would consider, oh, that's a large convention. I would say 1,800 is darn close to a large convention. Not a comparison to, I'm sure like a Gary Con or a Gen Con. Certainly not, and those probably don't even compare to a Comic Con that's in New York City. But there's a range, obviously. So, other expectations that I would have is, both, like I said, as a player, I expect to see, organization. As a game master at the conventions, again, I'm hoping for, a configuration of the rooms that is, it could still be full, but hopefully the acoustics are not where it's almost impossible to hear what's going on at your table. And, certainly tables that can accommodate anywhere from 6 to 8 people at the table. And I think 8 is probably an ideal size for a table. Even if you are only looking to sit 6 people, having those extra 2 spots allows you to do 2 things. Number one, allows everybody to spread out a little bit and be a little bit more comfortable, but it also leaves at least a spot or 2 at the table for those that are just like walk-ins and they're like, hey, do you have any room at this table? Sometimes people can't make it or whatever, and all of a sudden their schedule has a hole in it and they're looking to just fill that hole with some gaming. And so setting up for a table of 6, but it can actually seat 8, allows you to do that both as a game master and as the the convention runner also has that ability to say, hey, here are some other places that I'll look around, see if there's looking for a game kind of setup or looking for players kind of setup. And I've seen this done very, very well. Again, I'll give a shout out to Scott Legault from Rising Phoenix. I mean, he was literally coming to tables. Hey, you want to sit there? Tom Wilson did the same thing at ShireCon as well. Hey, there's, I see that you have some seats at your table that are open. Do you mind if this person joins? Absolutely, go right ahead. So I have seen that, at some of the conventions that I already go to. I don't know if Roger, if you don't mind, you want to say, like, if you were, depositing people at tables where there was openings. I'm sure you probably were. I just don't know directly, in my experience from it. So anyway, but welcome to jump on in. If anyone wants to jump on in and talk about their experiences at, wait, I hit the wrong button. Invite. So if anyone wants to jump in and talk, you're welcome to. There's the link. And so let's see what's some of the other expectations. And for those of you that just want to, chat in the box, what's an expectation that you have as a convention goer that I haven't brought up yet? Hey, DM Blackwall, how's it going? Yes, so I'd love to hear about your experience. And by the way, DM Blackwall will be on my channel Sunday evening at 7 p.m. He's certainly been running the circuit talking about Horde Wars. And so it will be my first time chatting with him directly. And we'll be talking about Horde Wars, which I do not have yet. So he can come on the channel and do a sales pitch and say, hey, this is why you should really be running this game or at least playing this game and running this game at your table. And I'm certainly open to doing that. I'm leaving for vacation on Tuesday, so it's not going to be a purchase I make immediately now. But yes, give me your sales pitch and looking forward to that. There definitely was some spots getting filled by my staff as people came in looking for a game. Yeah, and I'm almost certain that happens kind of uniformly. It's just not it's not something that I think you had a board, actually. You did have a board or a sign it like a sheet that had number of openings and such. Yes, you did on the table. I remember seeing that. And I think Rising Phoenix had a board as well where people could check to see, hey, there's an open spot here and such. Because tabletop events is not the easiest one day of to figure out what's going on and where. I can't recommend Gamehole enough for a small con. It runs like a Swiss watch. Great, that's pretty cool. And Gamehole is in Ohio, which is not terribly far from me. That's probably pushing about 8 or 9 hours, which I can certainly do in a one shot and then just sleep overnight. Probably that's probably still a 2 night trip. Yes, I'm looking forward to it too. Let's see. As a player, I expect GMs at the conventions to be very fluent in the game they are running. When I see a GM removing the cellophane from the book at the start of the session, I know I'm in for trouble. I've never seen that. That's pretty crazy. Um, but yeah, I certainly know. Um, I certainly know that as a game master, you want to be prepared to shift gears. You want to be very fast on your feet, and you want to be flexible. And you certainly don't want to be busting out the rule books and looking through those things. It's better to hand wave anything off that you're not 100% familiar with. Um, being fully fluent in a game, I ran Shadow Dark for the first time at a convention. As a matter of fact, probably at Rising Phoenix. Might have been the first time that I ran that game system. And that game system was so easy to run that it worked fine. But yeah, if you're running something like you're running something like Weird Frontiers. No, you have to be fairly fluent with that game system and know what to remove from it in order for it to be a good convention running game as well. We had a table with all the game sheets printed out. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's how you had it organized. And I recall looking at that. Are you allowed to drink alcohol at the convention tables, or is that frowned upon? Um, I never have, to be honest with you. I don't know. That would be more so a hotel policy, I think, than or possibly a policy at the at the convention location. So I don't know the answer to that. Maybe Roger could probably explain that better. They did let us eat and drink beverages at the thing. You probably could have had drinks at, but that's a hotel, so it's a little bit different. Gamehole is in Gamehole is in Madison. All right, I'm thinking of something different one then. So Madison is not within my driving range. Sorry. Depends on which conventions. The ones in Wisconsin, I think it's required to have a beer and share. um, that happened with me as GM when I was given a fresh copy of a handbook at the convention, so I used the new copy. Yeah, I mean, if you are, if you're familiar with the game or whatever, or if the game system is simple enough to actually run it straight right from the right from the thing, and you're an experienced game master that you're able to do that, that's fine. But yeah, if you're scrambling to try to figure out rules, that's not a good look unless you're doing like a demo. But if you're doing a demo, you should be an expert of the game that you're demonstrating. So yeah, that's a good thing to bring up, Peter. Thank you for that. You're excused. Let's see. Yeah. If you're prepared, then it's okay. I think Peter was talking more so just to have some familiarity with how that particular game system is going to run, or just how you're going to run that game system at your table. That's actually two different things there. Um, so yes, you need to be prepared more so than planned. let's say. And being prepared means, having the skill set to be very agile on your feet and to move, around. So, as a player, yeah, I would say I expect my GM uh, to, to be pretty fluent with the game system as well, and to be prepared to run that table and to have, both character sheets and pre-gens for the most part. Maybe um, a couple sets of dice just in case someone needs to borrow one is fine as well. Um, and basically just the ability to run the table, the ability to control the table is another expectation I would have of a game master. There is to actually master the table more so than mastering the game that Peter alluded to as well. Uh, so let's see. Other expectations. So, well, let me hear from some of you what you think what's an appropriate obligation of a special guest at a convention, if I haven't already mentioned it as well. Um, I was in a beta test group, and we beta testers were running the games at Winterfest when the game first dropped for players who had never seen the new rules. That was a blast. Yeah, and again, that's a different thing because everyone is going to be aware, hey, you know what? We're going to learn this game system together for the first time and experience it the first time. That was the 4E launch as well. Yeah, and I'm sure that that's something that's fairly common. I mean, at at Central New York, someone was running Daggerheart. It came on my channel and everything, and um, he couldn't have had that game for more than a week in hand before Rising Phoenix. I'm sorry, before Central New York. So I think that game came out on the 20th. 20th, 21st or so might have been the earliest that he got that game. And then it's already behind me. I'm kind of forgetting already. And so that was that would have been May 20th it came out. And so June 15th, 14th and 15th was Central New York. So maybe he had it for 3 weeks prior to running it. So that's a pretty quick turnaround. Yeah, that's pretty much a that's pretty much a given, I guess. Special guests should not be overly familiar with female guests, um, or if you have, whatever, you shouldn't be overly familiar with anyone that you're meeting for the first time for certain. And but yeah, as a married man, I'm certainly not going to be overly familiar with female players. So that's and that means verbally as well. I was a young military person in the time of oh, what the hell was it? Tailhook. So I kind of know the deal. I was also a public school teacher for 26 and a half years, and I knew all sorts of things about corporal punishment and just how language can get you into a lot of trouble if you're not if you're too overly familiar with anyone. So yeah, that's an interesting one to put out there. One I wouldn't have expected to see, but it should go. Common sense should always prevail in those kinds of situations. But I know that doesn't happen all the time. So other expectations that I would have of a venue. So I know this is going to sound crazy, but comfortable chairs. Please be aware that some people might be sitting in those chairs for 12 hours in a single day, if not more. And so making sure that you have fairly comfortable chairs is something that's a must for convention organizers. Now, if it's in a hotel, it's generally using their hotel chairs, and they tend to be fairly comfortable. Um, being in a park setting, I bring my own chair. I bring my own folding chair, which is a little bit easier to sit on than a park bench. So that's another thing to bear in mind, that gaming in the park is really nice for good weather and that kind of thing, but park benches are not comfortable at all. So that's another thing to bear in mind. And I've been to some conventions where they have like really those cheap plastic folding chairs, and those are brutal on your backs and on your ass and everything. So it's, be mindful of seating and the comfort of seating. Yes, there needs to be enough staff and volunteers to handle and organize the queues. Yep. Special guests need to know how to end conversations politely when someone tries to monopolize their attention. Yeah, that's another really important thing to remember. That Now again, it's like if you're sitting on a panel, I think those go a little bit more round robin kind of thing anyway. So no one person is really dominating the conversation. But you have to be mindful as someone who is sitting on those panels to pass it on to others too. Like if you're dominating it for too long, then it becomes your show, and you end up becoming the spotlight character, and you're not supposed to be the spotlight character. You're supposed to, be aware to pass it on. So yeah, that's a good expectation to have for special guests, and maybe something that they may have like an orientation for special guests before the convention, maybe just a really short one, to say, hey, these are the expectations, and if you are sitting on a panel, just be mindful of passing it on to other speakers, and when taking those questions, yeah, be on the alert for conversations that could go sideways really fast too. So that's the other thing that you want to bear in mind, is that you might get someone who is asking questions or making statements in a panel-like situation where their intent is not a positive one. And so you need to, kind of be on the lookout for that, and be aware that, you need a good exit strategy to get out of that conversation very quickly and politely, as you say, but certainly very quickly. All right. So yeah, that's a good point to put out there. And again, just be aware that not everyone has great intentions when they're asking questions, or they're asking loaded questions, and you might feel like uncomfortable, like, oh, I don't want to get dragged into making a statement that could be misconstrued away or something along those lines. It's kind of like the same thing like at your table. If you're running your own table, as a game master, at a convention space, you cannot control who is coming to your table. You might not have ever met these people before. And so when they do come to the table, and I haven't really experienced this. I've been very, very lucky, knock on wood, that I've never had a true negative experience at a convention, other than another player casting fireball on top of everybody to wipe out something that was pretty much on its way out anyway. But but to so I've never had that really negative experience. But yeah, you have to be aware, as a player, or as a game master, to control what's going on at your table as best you possibly can, and to not get drawn into any kind of thing that is questionable, that is possibly even intentionally wrong play, to put it. You don't want anybody having wrong fun at your table. You want them to have fun at your table. And I'm sure that goes the same thing with Roger. Like I'm not sure how open he is to talking about that, or whether he had any specific experiences, but to anyone at a convention, if you're a convention runner that is really causing problems, I know how I would handle it, but that might not be the best way to handle it, or whatnot. So hopefully no one really experiences those kinds of things. You have to be able to navigate the very outspoken players and allow those quieter folks to have their moment in the spotlight. That takes some tact at times. Yes, it does. You have to, move it along and keep on spreading the action. And I think what best is best way to handle that is to so once that person seems to have done what they were looking to do initially, move it on to the next player. Okay, thank you very much, and boom, you go to the next one, and just rotate it around. And if you find that one player just keeps on hogging the time, then there's nothing wrong with you saying, all right, we're going to move on now. Your character is now engaged in doing what you said you were going to do, and then just move it on to the next player. Now, with a system like no initiative in Daggerheart, I don't know how that could run, because you can have a table very easily dominated by one or two players, and the rest just fall silent and are just along for the ride, and that would not be a great experience. That is definitely a tricky thing to handle. My worst experience in a gaming, convention setting as a player was that my character got paralyzed during a fight, and so I ended up sitting there and this was an AD&D second edition game. I ended up sitting there doing nothing, just incapable of doing anything, for 45 minutes. And then finally, I was cured of that paralysis. And then in a very next encounter, within 5 or 10 minutes of that one, I ended up getting paralyzed again, along with another player. And we sat there for 45 minutes. So I was sitting there and thinking to myself and looking at this dungeon master with, pleading eyes, basically. It's like, I'm sitting here now for 90 minutes of a 3.5-hour session doing absolutely nothing, and it was like, once it was cured again, and I got to playing again for a little bit, if I had been paralyzed again for whatever reason and just taken out for another, 45 minutes or so, I would have probably gotten up from the table. And I was like, listen, you can't just let somebody sit here for an hour and a half or more doing absolutely nothing. All right, that's not what anyone has signed up for. I would have been very, very vocal about it. Let's see. So, Roger, we did very well this year and didn't have any real issues with anyone getting out of control. Yes, and that's awesome. I didn't get that sense that you would have, and that's one of the really good things about a smaller convention. And even though your convention was a fledgling convention, first year, and it had over 200 people, there. Um, you know, I wouldn't have expected there to be any real problems, in that. But once you start pushing, 1,000 or so people, I can almost guarantee that there's going to be at least one person out of 1,000 that is a problem. I don't wish that upon anybody, but I'm sure once it gets that large, the odds are, not in your favor to have something as smooth running as possible. Um, I know at some of the larger cons, I think most of their real issues was for the vendors' deliveries getting there. It was just something that has occurred at least two different conventions I've been to. That was one of the things, right? The vendors did not get their shipments either in time or correctly or whatnot. So that happened at Page, and I think to a lesser extent, it happened at yours as well, Roger. Let's see. We won't let it. Yeah, we won't let it hit 1,000. I'm not going to let it. Yeah, it's so in the years I've been running and attending, I have seen a few issues at the tables. I can't say it never happened. When it does, it sucks, but it's rare. Yeah, it's still very rare. Um, Even at conventions with, like I said, 600 or so, it's still rare. So, and I'm sure that even above that, see, the thing about conventions is, and I'm going to use an analogy, a teaching analogy, an education analogy. When the students are getting their education for free, they will skip homeworks and they'll miss classes and they'll do, this or that. They'll do a portion of what they think is enough. And then when they go to college and they're paying for those same credits, they become much better students. They become much more engaged. And so on and so forth, because now it's coming out of their own pocket. And that's very similar to gaming, when you're either running a table, or you're playing at a table in a convention setting. Everybody at that table has paid to be there. Whether you're running it or playing in it, you've paid to be there. You're looking to put your reputation as a player or as a game master on the line, that you're going to provide a positive experience for everybody at that table. And so you get a lot less ass hattery taking place at the table, and you just have an overall better experience. So again, my experience has virtually been always positive, with a few rare exceptions of people just being, overly silly with their spell casting. But for the most part, it has not ever been an issue. I think Mike TTRPG has the right idea of staying small. Yes, yeah, staying small is a decent thing to do. Um, well, not really small. He's capped at 600, I believe. I think anything larger than that, and you start to lose the personal feel. Yeah, and then that's Rising Phoenix is between 6 and 800, and it still holds that feel because the venue is pretty spacious for where things are going over there. So yes, um, so yeah, that's another thing that I can certainly see. So let's get back to the topic on hand now. So expectations. So player expectations, special guest expectations, and then the expectations for special guests or players should have with the convention runners as well. I like for there to be a lot of opportunities for special guests to be able to um, promote the conventions that they've gone through to. I have probably 10 different convention T-shirts, and some of them have been repeats, and so I've gotten rid of some of the older ones. Um, Plus I don't fit in a 1X anymore, so that kind of changed that as well. But for the most part, I think that um, convention runner expectations of special guests should be to promote their conventions, however means that they have for doing so. And then when those special guests get to the convention, to not necessarily have special treatment, but just acknowledgement and the ability to you know run run games as a special guest and have those possibly advertise, hey, this is a game being run by a special guest. And so people will people will certainly fill up those tables, or just sit there and watch what's going on and just take an added interest into it and everything. And in my view, it's always been an honor, just on its own, to be invited as a special guest. And again, it's not something that should be taken lightly either. And it's something that when you've been invited and you do attend, that you have some obligations to give back for that, and to again promote the convention itself as often as you possibly can. Now, as a player going to a convention, I think we've hit a lot of those things. So as far as the if it is a large convention, just everyone needs to be more mindful of that. That's where you need a lot of staff. Is if you have a large convention and you just have a handful of staff, like if you're pushing 800 plus and you have 5 staff members, that's going to be a freaking disaster. All right. That is going to be a real tough poll. I don't want to really just pull this number out of my butt, but page 2, which was about 1,800, I believe he said, he had at least 12 people assisting, at least 12. And it might have actually been a little bit higher than that. I would say certainly between 12 and 20 for sure. He had people assisting in every possible way. And Ron, I don't know if Ron is in here, but he can certainly say how large his staff was. His staff was, I'd say, between 12 and 20. And that seemed to be fairly good for that size. Roger, you had at least 6, right? I think you had about 6, not including yourself, right? I believe it was about 6, maybe slightly less, maybe 5, 6. I'll wait for you to jump in and say, yeah, it was this number here, but it was a good number. I think I certainly felt that the services that I was being assisted with was handled well by the staff that you had there. So it's very easy to say, oh, 1 or 2 more would have made it that much better. Well, that's always the case, right? Or very rarely will anyone say, oh, you could have gotten away with fewer. But I think you had it about right, depending on the number you actually had. Other things as an attendee, again, if it is in a place that's not a hotel, we had 9 total, including myself and my wife and my daughter, right? So, well, I wasn't counting on you, so like counting you in that. Um, Not that you weren't staff, but it was just like you were kind of running, as much of it as possible. So 9, yeah, and that seemed to be a pretty good number for 200 people. So I don't know exactly what the ratio should be, but it was fine. So I think it worked out. You could always, I'm sure even you will say, "Oh, if I had 1 or 2 more people, I would have been able to do this." But that will always be the case. I think you had a good number and it worked really well. Um, what was I just saying? So as an attendee, and we brought up food a lot earlier. Location, right? It's the same thing with like a store, owning a store, having a storefront. Location is really important when it comes to people having places to go to eat, whatever. If a convention is not in a hotel and doesn't have access to its own food site, like ShireCon is at a VFW, but they have a barbecue pit there. Plus, they have 2 bars, so it's really easy to get food there and reasonable, and it's good and whatnot. So yeah, no complaints about food there. The food was good at Central New York. The food is good at Rising Phoenix, in a hotel, again, a hotel restaurant. The food was good at Page. There was both, restaurant in the or the hotel food was pretty good. Plus, it was in a built-up area where there was plenty of restaurants and things, fast food restaurants and whatnot, in the general vicinity of that convention center. So there was plenty of places to go to eat as well. I think it worked fairly well. My staff was very attentive to everyone's needs, and that's an absolute fact. All right, and quality over quantity, and of course, yes. Um, so yeah, so access to food is kind of important at a convention, and decent food and food that is reasonably priced. Um, Accommodations for sleeping is, of course, if it can be held in a hotel, that is better than not. But if it isn't, then having close by hotels is another bonus as well. Um, Apparently, some GMs have BO issues because staff seem to need to remind volunteers to bathe and aptly deodorant. Where was that? I don't know. Some GMs have BO issues because staff seem to need to remind volunteers to bathe and apply deodorant. I've never encountered that. But yeah, I'm sure, you know, if you've experienced that, then I'm sure that that's a legitimate thing. Um, I know we used to go into when we used to go into the hobby shops, like well back into the day too. There was always that smell. I'll never forget the first time I brought my wife into a hobby shop. So this would have been in '97. This was before she was my wife. My fiance at that point, and I was trying to say, hey, you know what? I'm kind of involved in this hobby, and I brought her to a hobby shop, and when we walked out there, she was like, if you ever bring me into a place like that again, I will not. I am breaking this off because the owner was, just dirty. I mean, he was just, smelly and grungy looking and whatnot. And she was like, oh, that was just a horrible experience for her. And that was you know, it was a long, long time ago. And luckily I was like, all right, I'll never bring you into that hobby shop again. And actually, she never set foot in a hobby shop again with me anyway. So, yeah, I can see that could certainly be a problem. And yeah, some people need to be reminded of that. That's not exclusive to our hobby. Let's put it that way. When you go to really, really big conventions, you're going to run into that anyway. Um, so yeah, it's not exclusive. But anyway, um, let's see what else would be expectations that I would have as an attendee. Access to food, hotel if possible, um, comfortable seating, good table space use or good space usage, so that you're not struggling to be heard or to hear what's going on at your table. Scheduling and having a schedule with you know a bit of flexibility in mind with it, so that you can squeeze in a break somewhere in there. I mean, we broke away from our tables anyway. We'll say, hey, you know what, everyone, if you need to take a bio break, we'll do a real quick break. And we usually did that around hour 1.5 or 2, and did a quick break there. And um, the food delivery, so they were delivering food to the game room at Rogers Central New York Con. So they were actually bringing food to the tables, and there were a couple open tables in that room as well. So that was something else that Roger had there. That people, we sat around and we ate our lunches there while everyone else was running their games, and everything was in that same room too. So you had your vendors, you had a couple open tables, and then you had the primary number of gaming tables that were going on there. So that was really convenient, and and had a good feel to it, because you didn't feel like you were leaving the action. I mean, you could have gone off and eaten in the restaurant area too, but um, that was, I thought, a little bit less connected to the convention vibe going on there. All right, so let's see. Clear and easy to follow rules about what you can eat at the table while gaming. Yeah, there's yeah, you shouldn't be eating anything that is going to potentially damage people's gaming materials. Um, don't touch my books with Cheeto fingers either. It's like that's another thing. Um, One thing, and I know that this is highly appreciated as a player as well. But GMs, you should always let your players leave with their character sheets. All right, even if they're pre-gens, let them take the character sheets home as a memento of their time at your table. And one thing that I keep on forgetting all the time is take plenty of pictures. Take plenty of pictures at that. And it's something that I was remiss with at least one of my tables, and just ask people, hey, take a picture here, of every, and if that's at all possible for the convention runners to do as well, is to make sure every game session there's a photograph. But as a GM and as a player, I want to take a picture of every single table that I'm at, and every grouping of players that I have. And it's something that I have forgotten to do on one or two occasions over the last couple of conventions, and so that's something that is I think important to do as well, is to take plenty of photos and to share those out afterwards and talk about your experience after the convention as well. I moved every single table 20 times on Thursday night with my staff because a big thing for us is being able to get around the tables easily. Yes. And no Cheetos. Yes, no Cheetos. That's the one thing that should be banned, right? At the table. I always forget that pictures. I have had participants do selfies with me at the end. Yeah, and it's something that I forgot, from time to time as well. But that is going to be something that I just etch in my brain as like every convention now. I want to, table, a table shot of all of us sitting at the table. Just have somebody passing by. Hey, do you mind taking a picture of the group, and do it that way, and then you can get those pictures put out there. So let's see. Do you see any attendees dress up in costumes, magic users, monsters? I've seen a little bit. I've never had anyone dress up at my table, and I've certainly I'm too stick in the mud to do that kind of a thing myself. But yeah, I have seen some people dress up going to the convention. Again, smaller cons, I think it's a little bit less so than larger cons. Um, but yeah, there was a few. There was certainly a few at Rogers convention as well. I'm planning on having a photographer go around and take pictures next year. Yeah, I thought you did have somebody take pictures though, or it might have been one of your staff members. But yeah, that's a good idea to do. Um, At the con I ran, we had a volunteer as a photographer taking pictures of every table, and they did social media posts throughout the con. Yeah, and that's awesome too. And that's something that I want to do as well. So the next time that I go to a convention, I think I'm going to do like I did at Central New York. Is I had that gap in between my morning session and my evening session, and then I left the gap wide open that I can actually go around and talk and schmooze and this and that, and do some live streaming. I need to do some live streaming. I know in Diversity and Dragons, um, Scott, I believe is his first name. Yeah, Scott's his first name. He was at Central New York, and he did some live streams as well, pretty much at the wrap up of each night and such. So that was really good as well, and that's something that I have to remember to do. I usually do like a live stream in the evening and everything, but we wrapped up pretty late Saturday night at Rogers Convention. I think I got back to the room by like 12:30, and then I was, probably sleeping by 1, and then I was up at 6 or 6:30 or so. So again, I don't sleep much, especially when I'm away. Too excited to get into the next day's action. We had a staff member do it, but yeah, I want to do something like LB said. Yeah, so something, every session, every table, and then just do social media thereafter, or ask the special guests to do as much social media, because most of your special guests were YouTubers. With maybe only one exception, like Greg Gillespie was, a creator. Um, um, Greyhawk Grognard is actually both, right? So he creates games and he runs a YouTube channel as well. So yes, you can definitely see. I kept you up late with my speech. No, it was not your speech that kept us up late. It was a perfect nightcap, all right? Both figuratively and in reality too. So anyway, yeah, it was a great experience, and it's one that others, hopefully, if they saw it, I don't know if there were any other convention runners that were there. Roger, you would know better than I. But Ron from Page was there. So I'd love to hear the feedback that you had from Ron about the convention. I'm sure it was positive, but if he gave you any like very specific, hey, next time do this, or hey, this worked out really well with for me or whatnot. But yeah, Ron was there. So I'm sure you got some feedback from him. Let's see. And I am going to just check the time real quick and see. So anyway, I think this one has pretty much run its course. So again, and this is kind of a response to some of the videos that Eric Tenkar has been putting out. He's been doing these little snippets. I haven't seen the full context of the whole video where he's talking about like special guests and what the expectations are of special guests, and then what expectations that special guests should have of the conventions. And I'm a little bit less concerned about what my expectations are when invited as a special guest as I am what can be expected of me, because I feel that, I'm going to get people watching my channel, and that's, enough for me. And I'm getting the acknowledgement that, hey, my channel has helped, in its small way, let's say, push for this convention. And I just like the opportunity to give back to the hobby in the sense of promoting conventions, and especially local conventions and smaller conventions and whatnot, because I think that that's um, the true heart of the hobby is gaming and conventions. And the more we can open that up for especially younger players, people playing in tabletop role playing for the first time, I think it's a great experience for them to go to conventions and to experience the hobby, possibly for the first time in that kind of a setting. I think it's phenomenal. So again, I give a lot of credit to these, individuals that I've brought up here and there, that run these various conventions, and I give you props for taking that risk and putting it out there, and very, very thankful for being invited as a special guest, and and would love the opportunity to do more for the conventions. That way, I am giving back a little bit more towards those that are, of course, inviting me specifically. So anyway, so yeah, you learned a lot from Ron, and I'm sure you have. And I'm looking forward to seeing you. I know you said that you're going to look at ShireCon, and I think you'll really love ShireCon as well. And if you can ever get out to Rising Phoenix, that's a really good one. And you'll see Peter. I'm not sure if Peter is going to make the next one. Peter, if you're still on, if you're going to be at the next Rising Phoenix, I am definitely going to be at the next Rising Phoenix. I've already told Scott Legault that I will be there. That is its fifth year, so it's its fifth anniversary. That'll be my third Rising Phoenix that I'll be attending, and really looking forward to that. That will be in April, which means I'm alternating that with Philadelphia Area Game Expo, which I explained to Ron that I'm going to probably end up having to alternate, every other year for those conventions that are 2 or possibly even 3-day events. So going forward, Central New York is on my plate every year. So that's without a doubt. 2 hours and 45 minutes is not much of a drive for me at all. And, great time of the year too. So weather-wise, it was perfect. And so looking forward to that as well. Coming up is ShireCon in September. So that is, I might as well grab the flyer here. So ShireCon is September 26th and 27th in Canaan, Connecticut. And then the others will be, that'll be my last one of 2025, unless something really does come up. Let's figure out something for next year and we can get a plan together. I'd love to discuss ideas that I have and get your input. Yes, and you're certainly welcome to do so. That's another thing I want to mention about some conventions are they're booking up like 9 months in advance. And to me, that's a little bit too far out. I don't know if that's because they're afraid they won't book up or something. I don't know, but yeah, I have a hard time committing to something that's more than a year away or close to a year away. I mean, with the exception of Rogers, because that's literally just 2 hours and 45 minutes away. But yeah, having conventions filling up and selling their tickets 10 months prior to is I think too soon. So that's one thing I would say is like, yeah, that's a little bit too far out. And I think it leads to, even though you can always cancel your reservations and all of that fairly painlessly and everything, but it's, I think, a real issue that far out that you're just more likely to have it happen across the board in a number of places. And so I don't know. That's just something that, that I see as a potential, real issue of, hey, you know what, I can't make it now. And I'm letting you know 2 months in advance rather than, 6 months or 8 months in advance. So that's just another thing I came across. It's a real shame that travel to America is so awkward at this time. It'll be a while before I can attend the conventions I used to go to. Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest hindrance for me has been just the cost of travel, more so than, any kind of awkwardness or anything like that. But the cost of travel is definitely something that hopefully comes down a little bit more. It's interesting because it is easier to ride the hype train while it's fresh in your mind. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I don't mind bringing people on the channel to talk about their conventions like 6 months out or so. But yeah, like if if I was going to have you on now to talk about your convention next June, I think it's like it's going to get lost. It's going to get lost, and you probably still have so many different moving parts right now anyway that it would be just too far ahead to really start to think about and plan and everything. Definitely call me in September. Reach out to me in September, and we'll definitely get things going. Rolling in September. That's for sure, because that's at that point you're only 9 months out, and that's where you have to probably start crunching down on some things. I'm trying to balance that with the practicality. I think I'll open up badge sales about 9 months mark. Yes, so that's I literally just said that before I read your thing. So yes. So yeah, we're on the same kind of wavelength and everything. I think 9 months or 9 months is a good time to start planning out. Yours is a lot easier because of the time of the year. Very few travel issues in June as opposed to in the wintertime, let's say. So yeah. So that's another benefit of a June, and people need to remember that too. Now, June, you probably run into some, graduation time of the year and, um, wedding seasons and those kinds of things as well. So I know it's kind of a jigsaw puzzle that you're working with, trying to find the perfect time. But you already have your dates set, which I believe was it the June 14th and 15th now? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you already had your date set for June 13th and 14th, wasn't it? Yeah. The blizzards are not a great thing, especially in the mid Hudson region of New York or, your central New York. But 12th and 14th. All right. So, for 12th and 14th. I thought I just looked. Um, nope, I went too far. I went to 2027. That's what I did wrong. Uh, oh, it's 3 days, 12, 13, and 14? 12 through 14. Cool. So we're doing a one game session and a meet and greet on Friday next year. All right. So I stay Friday night, Saturday night, and then I go home Sunday morning. All right. Definitely going to do that. Open to all badge holders, not just a VIP thing. Cool. Oh, the meet and greet. Yeah, that's a cool idea. One game session. And then that. Yeah, and I don't work on Fridays, so that works out pretty well. So well, Friday one evening, and then all day Saturday, and then Sunday, probably about midday. I'll probably catch a Sunday morning event and then split out Sunday afternoon. All righty. All right, everyone. I'm going to wrap this one up. Thank you so much for joining in. I know this was an impromptu one, so not too much notice that I was doing this. I really wasn't thinking about it until I caught a couple more of Eric Tenkar's little expositions on where he kind of stood on being a special guest and expectations and such. And so I wanted to open that up to my audience as well and give some of my opinions on it, more directly than just making comments on someone else's page. And so I thank Roger and all the rest of you for popping in here and talking about your own experiences. Roger being a convention runner, so it's good to see that someone who has, now done the time and done the deed and gotten it as a successful launch, also participate in this kind of a conversation. I think it works well for both. For all three parties or all four parties concerned, as far as a convention runner, an attendee, game masters, and special guests. I think that's kind of your four constituencies. Oh, plus a fifth would be vendors. So those are basically the five different groupings of people that attend conventions. And if there's any that I missed, you're welcome to put that in the comments section. So I'm going to wrap this one up. Thank you, everyone, for joining in, and you all have a great rest of your evening. Great. It's Wednesday, so it's like I'm losing track of days of the week now because we're all off from school, so it kind of blends in. But anyway,